6 World Cup bows, 6 guaranteed qualification slots, 6 and a bit years for everyone else to get their heads around it. You wait months and months for a decision on who is going to host a major football tournament, and then you get 13 hosts announced in one day. Confused? Yeah, me too. While I'm looking forward to the 2028 Euros in the UK, start saving for the 2030 World Cup in Argentina, Morocco, Paraguay, Portugal, Spain and Uruguay, and wonder how Italy and Turkey are going to share out the 2032 Euros. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, can enjoy a clear run at staging another Winter World Cup in 2034, although Australia are still exploring the possibility of putting their name in the hat. FIFA calls this the Confederation Rotation Principle, and by grouping 3 confederations together in 2030, Africa, Europe and South America, it leaves the way clear for Asia and Oceania to host the 2034 tournament. So be prepared for another Winter World Cup in Saudi. But that is a debate for another day. Let's focus on the decision to share the 2030 World Cup finals between 3 countries on one continent and 3 other countries 6,000 miles away from those 3 nations that span 2 other continents. So how did this all happen and why exactly is it being allowed to happen? Let's take a look. Shout out to James Day for the suggestion for this video. The first thing you need to understand about bidding contests is they are great fun until you lose one. What most bidders want is a coronation, not a contest. The governing bodies, however, quite like contests as it makes their event look in demand, which helps when you're trying to sell media rights and sponsorships. However, even the most vain governing body boss knows what is best of all is the appearance of a contest, with just the right amount of lobbying before everyone agrees that bid X is the best bet and bid Y can have a consolation prize. And that is what has happened here. FIFA, football's world governing body, has 6 confederations: Africa, Asia, Europe, Central and North America, South America and Oceania. As you may remember, the 2022 World Cup was played in Qatar, which is a member of the Asian Football Confederation. The 2026 World Cup is going to be a CONCACAF extravaganza, as it is being shared by the 3 largest members of that confederation: Canada, Mexico and the US. This order of events should have left the way clear for a proper battle between Africa, Europe and South America to host the 2030 edition. However, Africa has only ever hosted one World Cup, the 2010 tournament in South Africa, and the South African people are still paying for it. Furthermore, the intervening years has not been kind to the African Football Confederation, as it has lurched from crisis to crisis, and has even had a period in special measures when FIFA was effectively running the show. A purely African bid has been considered a non-starter then. Morocco, to its credit, has kept bidding for World Cups, but defeat by the CONCACAF juggernaut at the 2018 Congress was the North African country's 5th failure at this game in 30 years. However, even before FIFA decided in 2017 to expand the Men's World Cup to 48 teams, we'd moved into the era of joint bids. After all, there are not many countries with a dozen FIFA standard football stadiums ready to go, and even if FIFA has got out of the habit of expecting nations that do not have them to build them. For all its wealth, Qatar scaled back its original plan to use a dozen venues and went with 8, 7 of which were new. So the new mantra is spread the load, share the love, and this brings Africa back into the picture as a hosting partner. But with who? At the start of this year, it looked like Saudi Arabia, still annoyed that neighbour Qatar had beaten it to the punch. They were going to try and fool everyone into forgetting that it was not Asia's turn by teaming up with bodies eventually realised that 8 years is not long enough between Winter World Cups in the Gulf, and that maybe it should focus on improving its domestic lead and building up its tourism. As we all know, they have cracked on with that. So that left two interested parties, Europe and South America. Once upon a time, these two superpowers simply took it in turns as World Cup hosts, but that is not a global approach to the world's most popular game. No, these two were going to have to fight it out, and that could be awkward. On the one hand, you had UEFA, Europe's governing body, pointing out it should really be getting every third World Cup, with most of the world's best players working there, European nations winning the trophy regularly, and European broadcasters writing big checks for the media rights. Europeans just had to decide among themselves who to put forward to avoid the embarrassment of a split vote, and having persuaded serial losers England to concentrate on a British/Irish bid for the Euros, UEFA proposed a Portugal-Spain combo. On the other hand though, 2030 will be 100 years since the first World Cup in Uruguay, and in an age when entertainment is all about narratives, milestones matter. Uruguay, with its population of 3.4 million, slightly less than Los Angeles, was not suggesting it should host a party for 47 other nations and provide venues to host 104 games of football over 5 weeks on its own. No, the plan, as devised by CONMEBOL, South America's confederation, was to get neighbours Argentina, Chile and Paraguay in on the act too. Small problem. None of these countries possess a single stadium that FIFA would be entirely happy with. They have a few that could be renovated, but that would cost money these nations either do not have or do not want to spend on football stadiums. And who can blame them? They had front row seats for what happened when Brazil decided it could afford a World Cup and Olympics in 2014-16. Long story short, it couldn't. In the meantime, UEFA was looking to add romance or sympathy to its bid by tagging Ukraine onto the European duo. The sentiment was understandable, but the plan was not. Even if the war with Russia finished today, Ukraine is going to have more pressing concerns than finding the right number of 5-star hotel beds and elite training facilities. A far better third party was eventually found in Morocco, fresh off a rousing run to the semis at Qatar 2022. It was there, 8 miles away, all along, sitting patiently with its vote of 54 African members. Suddenly what looked like a 2-horse race had become a walkover. But wait, if a sports governing body cannot honour its past, it really might as well back up and give in. Of course, there had to also be a birthday party element to 2030. And it is not like CONMEBOL and UEFA have been at loggerheads. On the contrary, these two have been best friends ever since FIFA started looking at the rising Asian economies in China and the Gulf. The vibe has been us old-timers need to stick together, so they signed a memorandum of understanding in 2020, then renewed it 18 months later to create a partnership until 2028. At first, it looked like Europe and South America had just agreed to be wary of whatever FIFA President Gianni Infantino came up with next. But then they started doing stuff together, stuff that looked a bit like a threat to FIFA. A shared office in London, a programme to develop referees' finalisma matches between their respective men and women champions, and now the greatest joint venture of all, a World Cup separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay will host the start of the tournament with an opening ceremony and one group stage game each. The first one will be in Montevideo's Estadio Centenario, which, if you have not guessed, is where it all started in 1930. Some might say not a huge amount has changed at the venue since then, but FIFA's corporate guests will no doubt turn a blind eye to the missing roof, hospitality boxes and restaurants for 90 minutes. The Host 3 nations also get their free passes into the tournament, which is perhaps not the stroke of fortune you might think it is, as 6 of the 10 CONMEBOL nations will qualify directly, and a 7th could make it to via the playoff. Spare a thought for Chile though. FIFA has apparently drawn the line at 6 hosts and 3 opening ceremonies, so Chile's wait for a global platform continues. Anyways, back to those who have made the cut. While 6 teams are ticking the Legends box in South America, the other 42 competing nations will be in Morocco, Portugal and Spain, where they will be joined as soon as possible by the 6 sides that have played their openers in Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay. Will they be tired and jet-lagged? Maybe, but never mind, think about the spectacle. And FIFA can think about the revenues pouring in from those games at the redeveloped Bernabeu, Camp Nou and Mestalla, and be pleased that the World Cup in a European time zone is a much easier sell to broadcasters around the globe than in the Americas. So 6 winners, 9 if you include CONMEBOL, FIFA and UEFA. But there is more. There is always more. Because by knocking off 3 continents in one World Cup, FIFA gets to tick around again to Asia. The decision caught many FIFA observers off guard, but you know you was ready for it. Within a couple of hours of the 2030 news dropping, Saudi Arabia announced its intention to bid for the 2034 World Cup on its own. Hosting a FIFA World Cup in 2034 would help us achieve our dream of becoming a leading nation in world sport and would mark a significant milestone in the country's transformation, said Saudi Sports Minister. As an emerging and welcoming home for all sports, we believe that hosting a FIFA World Cup is a natural next step in our football journey. The same could be said about China or India, or a joint bid between Australia and New Zealand, as happened with this year's Women's World Cup, or a bid from a to-be-finalised group of Southeast Asian countries. But none of those have spent the last year chucking wads of cash at famous footballers, building new cities in the desert, signing various memoranda of understandings with African football associations, getting officials on FIFA committees and hosting every available sports event. The fact that FIFA wants to make this decision next year is going to make it difficult for anyone, even China, to catch up with the lead Saudi has built in the race. So, 10 winners then. Now you can see hopefully how FIFA came to this decision and how every nation, every federation is happy, and most importantly, FIFA are happy. They get that huge check from all these countries and sponsors. So there we go. That is how FIFA came to the decision to host the 2030 World Cup in 3 continents. Pretty crazy and has some knock-on effects for 2034, but let me know your thoughts on the World Cup hosting. Is it good for football or is it bad for football? Is it doable? Do you think it will actually happen or not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed, please leave a like. Consider subscribing. And I'll see